It always takes me a while to do the promo because I kind of get lost because I'm active in a lot of the servers that I self-promote in, as as you should be, honestly. But I'm always navigated away from the place where you promo. All right, this should be good. As far as promo goes. Hello, everyone. I just saw us appear on your stream. No, I don't want to take a picture. What? I'm sorry. I don't like touch screens. Hello, Undertaken King, and well, it's just Undertaken King right now. But hello, thank you so much for joining us on Chloe's stream. I'm about to find Chloe's chat. I on my phone. Round and round went the blades of the fan. Ah. Leaning back in his chair, the man let out a sigh as he stared at the ceiling. I'm sorry. He was alone at a table for two and almost finished with his coffee. Ghosted, huh? It was a suspicion that didn't particularly bother him. For his line of work, he was very average. But of course, when there are a lot of outliers, being average isn't the same thing as being normal. He was a paranormal investigator, and his field was full of outliers. But don't misunderstand. He didn't become one because he was interested in the occult. It was just the first job he could land out of college. Some publishing company hired him, and Human Resources decided that writing and editing for a spooky tabloid was where he belonged. He wasn't exactly thrilled, but hey, a job's a job. She seemed like a good lead, too. I guess I'll have to find someone else. He couldn't help but be annoyed about having wasted his time. He clears his throat and noted the lingering taste of coffee in his mouth. It matched his mood, faintly bitter. This definitely wasn't his dream job. He couldn't understand what got people so excited about obviously doctored photos, made-up stories, and untreated mental illness. When he first started, it didn't interest him at all. Over the years, though, he found ways to enjoy his work. The occult is boring. Wait, sorry. The occult is boring. The crazy people who get drawn into it, though, they're interesting. He knew it wasn't nice of him to think that way, but he couldn't help himself. It was either that or lose the only motivation he had. I'm terribly sorry I'm late, quoth an unknown voice. He jumped in his seat and scrambled to sit up straight before checking to see who was sitting across from him. When did she get here? It was his source. She bowed apologetically, appearing not to notice the reporter's confusion. I'm sorry, my mother wanted me to go shopping with her, and I lost track of the time. I'm really sorry. She glanced at his coffee and called a waiter over while scanning the simple menu beside the table. I'd like a milk tea, and please bring one for him as well. Oh, no, thanks. I'm just glad you could make it. If anything, I should cover the bill. Nonsense. It's the least I could do after keeping you waiting. All right, then. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you, waiter. That'll be all. The waiter nodded and went off to get their drinks. The reporter tried to look politely sheepish, but truth be told, he was relieved. His employer wasn't exactly Fortune 500 material, and his reporting wasn't anything special. They didn't pay him enough to throw his money around buying drinks for sources. This way, he wouldn't have to charge it as a business expense and put up with the nagging from accounting that would ensue. Money never did grow on trees. Anyway, how are you? We can wait to do the interview if you need a moment to catch your breath. I appreciate your concern, but that won't be necessary. So, what did he want to ask me? She frowned a little. as though hesitant to talk, but the reporter gave her a look that said he was ready to get down to business. I'm told you know a thing or two about the Kotori Bako. Oh, I've just heard stories, really. I don't know how true it is. I can tell you what I know, but there's a lot of gaps and jumping around. Not a problem. Filling in those gaps is what I do. By the way, you don't mind that I'm reporting this, do you? The source nodded feebly, giving him a twinge of satisfaction. The curse of the Kotori Bako. Rumors about it were commonplace among online enthusiasts of the weird and frightening, although no one could determine when they had started circulating. The story was the kind where some sort of long-suffering minority would get revenge on their oppressors through supernatural means. In this case, they did it by making the box, a process which supposedly involved a dark ritual where they sacrificed little girls. The box could cause serious injury or death to anyone who touched it, and no one who laid eyes on it would come away completely unscathed. It was said to be especially deadly for young girls, whose insides it would tear out. The details would vary, like they always did, but that was the gist of it. The paranormal tabloid he worked for had decided to run a feature on the box, and ever the diligent reporter, he was doing the legwork of investigating the rumors. After all, anyone could regurgitate what they found on the internet. He needed to give people something they hadn't heard before. He'd been asking around out in the sticks, and that was what brought him to set up this interview. I've got to say, this has been a fascinating journey. I should have just about everything I need. All that's missing is that one special something. He'd worked long and hard to find a source this promising. I've talked to a lot of people who said it was in their family shrine or that their parents had it in storage somewhere. The story always ends with with some kind of horrible accident. Now it's time to find out. How would it go this time? So, if you'd be so kind. Very well then. Where do I start? It's supposed to be very old, rather. She had finished her tea, and the ice was melting in the glass. It shifted noisily as she began her story. There was an island, not all that far from mainland Japan. On a clear day, you could see the mainland from the shore. But it wasn't terribly close either, just a little fog, and there would be nothing but ocean for as far as the eye could see. It wasn't a large island, certainly not the size of a country, but it was home to several villages. They were humble places where the people made their living by cultivating the land or helping themselves to the ocean's bounty. Their lives could have been so simple, but alas, they wouldn't be able to remain isolated on their island forever. There was a river that ran through each village. That's where the story began, on one of that river's banks. A crowd had gathered. You could tell they were poor by the way they dressed, although there were a few who looked somewhat more well-to-do, merchants perhaps. The mass of people were circled around something, all facing toward a single spot. It wasn't an everyday kind of gathering. Where they were looking, the riverbank's gravel turf had been stained a dark red, the color of dried blood. A dirty, emaciated man, sitting with his arms tied behind his back, was the object of their gaze. He was silent, staring down at the blood-stained ground. Droplets of cold sweat ran down his face, a few at a time. There was murmuring in the crowd, the people talking amongst themselves. There was no conspiratorial note to their whispering, however. It was merely the grumbling of riffraff. Another one for the chopping block, huh? It's for disloyalty to the daimyo, supposedly. How many does this make? He should have known what would happen. What are you gonna do? It's just the way it goes. We're getting taxed to death. Hell, I know if we're gonna make it. Hell, I don't know if we're gonna make it through the winter. I guess we just have to hope for the best. Oh, yum. I love having hope for dinner. Hey, what are you getting at? We're not people to them. They'd kill us. You can't kill every weed in a field. Still sweating, the man with his arms bound laughed. Oh, that was a bad laugh. I'm sorry. Behind him stood a samurai official, sword in hand, the sword that would end the bound man's life. You got that right. We're lower than the damn weeds, aren't we? Oh, that wasn't a very good voice for him. I didn't get a good look at his face. Sorry, I had to fix Chloe's chat on my phone a little bit. That very moment, a foot came into this field of vision, gravel crunching beneath it. It belonged to the governor, the one appointed by the daimyo lord. He surveyed the crowd, meeting the people's gazes, and they fell silent in an instant. Lord. The governor nodded, smirking, and without a word, he gave his official the signal to go ahead. Sir, are you sure we shouldn't allow him any last? No point. The governor said no more and gave the signal again. Must be rough, buddy, having to kill an innocent man. You know, Governor, I think your little manservant has outdone you. He just might have a conscience. The governor looked down on the peasant in stony silence. He had already given his order. The crowd watched with bated breath. Hello, Solax. Thank you for joining Chloe and me. They knew the small act of defiance meant nothing. but they were curious to see what would happen. You take everything we've got. Why is it never enough? You take the fish we catch. You take the rice we grow, and meanwhile we're here starving. Don't you see anything wrong with that? We've given you everything. And what do we get for it? Through it. You took it all. You killed my mama. You killed my son. You killed them. And you say I'm the criminal because I don't want to put up with it. The serf had a crazed look in his bloodshot eyes. The angry red veins branching through them made it look as though he had cried every last tear his ducts could hold. The executioner looked at him with pity, as though he were a feral dog that was going to be put down. You bastards, go to hell, all of you! A pox on your houses! And don't think any of you are getting off either. They'll do the same to you. Your daimyo's a cold-blooded His head rolled off and fell to the ground. The cut was clean and professional. The governor grinned as he watched blood begin to spill over the rocks. When he was satisfied, he turned to the crowd and spoke. Any of your ingrates care to join him? Everyone shook their heads in response, lips pursed solemnly. The official who had performed the execution gave an approving nod, to which the governor smiled. It was a genuine smile, the smug satisfaction of a man who'd crushed a pesky fly. Good work. You know what to do with the body. Yes, sir. The executioner bowed to the governor as he took his leave of the riverbank. He was followed by a retinue of samurai, who seemed as though they had come out of nowhere. Meanwhile, the severed head stared back into the crowd, eyes unblinking. The farms and fisheries of the island were generally bountiful. It was rare for them to see a bad harvest or a small catch. There was no hope of an uprising. The island was too far from the mainland for one to have any chance of success. Hard as the peasants might fight, there were no potential allies for them to find. The island had been fairly independent in a few decades. The mainland declared it to be his property. Japan had entered its warring states period. Warlords and strongmen came to blows over land and power as the shogun and his government in Muromachi became increasingly irrelevant. Where once the daimyo had been mere agents of the shogun's ultimate authority, they began to see themselves instead as the rightful owners of the lands they ruled. Each one was soon the king of his own petty fiefdom, ruling only as he saw fit, so laws could vary drastically from one territory to the next. As war raged across the lands, it was not uncommon for the powers that be to change overnight. None of that was of any concern to the people of this island, though. All that mattered to them was how their lives were becoming more and more unbearable. They kept hoping that it would soon be over. Soon things would change. Hope was the fire they were being cooked over, while their bellies stayed empty and their lives grew worse. They didn't know what people on the mainland called their island, 𝕂𝔸𝕋, the Isle of Offerings. It was a fitting name. The islanders were the offerings. Gah, quoth an unknown voice. Asa threw up, leaning against a wall outside the rundown house he called home. He'd just come back from the riverbank. Why was it looking at me? What the hell? He could still see the severed head staring straight into his eyes. He couldn't get it out of his mind. It wasn't the first time. He had seen numerous peasants like himself lose their heads on that riverbank, and they always looked into his eyes. He could still see them, the memories swirling in his head. He hated going to the executions, but he couldn't help but think, what if it was him? What if it was his daughter? He couldn't just ignore them. He couldn't stay away, and every time they made eye contact. Uh, uh, Throwing up again, Asa. You shouldn't waste good rice. Asa turns to see who was there. Looking sick to his stomach, it was Jean. It was a Ging, another peasant he knew from First Village. You do the same. They always look at me. I don't get. Oh, man up. You're freaking yourself out. You should be worried about sick little Sen-chan. Right, sorry. Asa tried to pull himself together, appreciating the comforting way Ging was patting his back. Forget the others. Wait, that was the wrong one. I'm sorry. Forget the others. If I don't figure something out soon, we'll be just as dead. He couldn't afford to waste what little there was in his stomach. Swallowing his bile, Asa cleared his throat, wiped his mouth, and then forced a laugh. I'm good now, thanks. If you say so. Ah, he was from Fifth Village, huh? The last one was Seventh. Getting a lot of them lately. Not surprised. Ging glanced around to check for listening ears before he lowered his voice and continued. I know things have never been great, but this year's looking real bad. At this rate, we're as good as dead. They might not be able to kill every weed in the field, but they're sure as hell trying. I hate it. The crack in Asa's voice spoke to how hopeless he felt in a way that words couldn't. Yeah, me too. Ging was hurting as well. The daimyo and his governors in the village were taking nearly all the food for themselves. The taxes were beyond heavy. They left so little for the peasants that it seemed unlikely any of them would survive. It was still only autumn, so things were okay for the time being. Still, winter was on its way, and people's stores were already running low. They could all be dead by the end of the season. We're powerless. We're nothing to them. We're their slaves. There's gotta be something, anything. My wife and I are barely eating. I'm watching her wither away. Watch your voice before someone hears you. Geen shut his mouth and checked their surroundings again. There didn't appear to be anyone eavesdropping. God damn. I wish they'd do the execution somewhere else, like in the daimyo's manor. Asa sighed and looked up at the manor. It overlooked all the villages of the island on top of a hill. Ging laughed nervously at the remark. Haha. And you're telling me to watch my mouth? Whatever. He probably doesn't want our blood sneaking up the place. Oh, yeah. At the riverbank. He can just wash it off when it starts to smell. He thought back to the dead man looking into his eyes, and then he shook his head in frustration. I don't know what to do. Nothing. Nothing we can do. They both sighed and gave up on talking. Soon they drifted listlessly back to their homes. Asa's door was stuck as usual. He was never going to get it fixed. However, with a little effort, he got it to slide open. It didn't exactly smell nice inside, but he was home, and it made him somewhat less anxious. Daddy! Keep your butt in bed. Okay. His daughter Sen was sleeping in the corner. Asa kicked off his straw sandals and went to her side. How are you feeling? I think I'm better now. You've got to rest. Come on, deep breaths. Okay. See? I'm fine. Sen tried to force a smile even as she coughed. Asa watched with a solemn look on his face. I'm sorry, Daddy. I just want to get better. I want to help you in the fields. I don't want to be a burden. I know. That's why you have to rest. Okay, I'm sorry. His daughter was apologizing to him for being sick, but there wasn't a damn thing he could do to comfort her. All their most nourishing crops went straight to the governor. He'd already given Sin everything that was left over. Still, her health wasn't showing any signs of improvement. Tomorrow, I'll bring you something real filling. That'll help you get your strength back. He was lying. The only thing he could do for Sin was lie to her. Or was that just wishful thinking? Maybe he was actually lying to himself. Yay. Regardless, Sen laughed for him. It helped. Her smile was the only thing keeping Asa going, even though he hated himself for how guilty he didn't feel about making her comfort him. Thank you. I'm sorry, Daddy. You don't have to apologize, sweetheart. Okay. Sen nodded after a long pause. Deadman's eyes were flashing before Asa. Mm. Still sitting next to Sen, Asa clenched his fists tight. I can't let her end up like them. I have to save her, come hell or high water. That's all that matters. He was sincere, but illness and starvation belonged to a different order of truth than mere sincerity. Weakly, Sen placed a hand on Asa's fist. His grip was tight enough to draw blood, but he loosened it to let her slide her hand into his palm. Your hand's so warm, Daddy. Is that so? Yeah, really warm. I get cold all alone. Sen smiled sheepishly. Sorry, Daddy. I shouldn't make you worry. I'm sorry. For all her apologizing, Sen didn't let go. She was like a mewling stray hungry for attention. She knew he couldn't stay with her all the time. She was trying not to be selfish. But that just made her want to clean even harder. Don't worry. I'll stay with you until you fall asleep. Asa bowed his head in relief as he squeezed her hands. It was bony and cold, but her pulse was still there. He wanted so badly to feel the life in her. Okay, thank you. She wasn't apologizing this time. Asa smiled at that. But even as he sought warmth in his daughter's hands, he found himself being splashed in the face with the cold water of reality. Asa was at a loss for what to do. How did it get to this point? He had heard things were different when his parents were little and his grandparents in their prime. The previous daimyo wasn't as bad. Back then, the islanders of Ōshima had no reason to be interested in mainland politics. They blindly believed things would always be the same. What difference did it make to them who the daimyo's boss was? They paid their taxes reliably. What good would it do him to ask for more than they could offer? It struck Asa as the attitude of sheep ripe for the slaughter. It must have been nice to believe they could live in peace forever. They never even thought to arm themselves. Hell, maybe maybe that was the right call at the time. Their daimyo may not have been so lenient if he thought they were becoming a threat. Besides, life was good back then. As long as they kept him fed, he kept them safe from outside attack. Hmm. Uh, Give me a momentary hydration break. I can't even imagine living that way. Asa was grinding his teeth audibly. Taxes had only gone up since the start of the new daimyo's reign. At this point, the islanders were truly slaves. Whether farmer or fisher, they lived only to serve him. They couldn't hope for even the most basic of dignities. Thank you, I'm trying really hard, Undertaken King. Was it really all because power had changed hands on the mainland? Maybe there was a bad harvest they were trying to make up for. But bad harvests didn't last for decades, and even if one had, it would be their problem to deal with themselves. If we let the daimyo keep having his way, we'll starve. But if we demand change, he'll kill us. Just like the ones who had lost their heads at the riverbank and stained the gravel red. Okay. Mhm. Asa squeezed his daughter's hand as she coughed. Oh, that was a cough. Okay. No, no, we're doomed. And Sen's gonna be the first to go. But even in his darkest hour, Asa wouldn't cry out to the gods for help. He knew his prayers would go unanswered. The idea of being reborn in paradise did nothing for him. He needed help in his life. What do I do? What am I supposed to do? Asa had a good head on his shoulders. He was careful and tried not to let slip remarks about the governor or daimyo, but he could feel the pressure building all around him. There were 7 villages on the island, and in each of them, people were reaching the absolute limits of what they could take. Just a little push, and they would explode. But that'd just make things worse. We'd be goners. The daimyo's governors would hear about it if they started amassing weapons, and to stand a fighting chance, they'd have to muster far too large a force to move undetected. The daimyo would have plenty of time to rally his own troops. He and his personal army could weather a siege in his hilltop manor until reinforcements from the mainland arrived. And when they did, they'd kill the islanders. If they left any survivors, it would only be so they could continue to work the land for the daimyo. Things would be even worse than they are now for anyone who was still alive. The islanders would only have a chance of success if their strike was quick and decisive, and even then, they would need some way of holding off the mainland. Overthrowing the daimyo alone was a tall order. Doing it without facing outside intervention would be impossible. Damn it. Sen's really gonna... No, not yet. Clenching his fists, Asa watched his daughter sleep. Her breathing was strained. She was all skin and bones, but even so, she had such a look of pure innocence. It warmed her father's heart. There's got to be something I can do for her. She's the only thing that really matters. He racked his brain for a way to save the one good thing in his life. Seeing him struggling to hold back his tears, Sen smiled at him. Daddy, am I sick with the same thing Mommy had? Maybe so. Her mother had passed away a year prior. It was her lungs. Now, Sen was displaying very similar symptoms. Oh, welcome, Raiders! Hello, Music. Thank you so much for rating Chloe's stream, on which I'm guesting presently. But it's not your fault. It was just bad luck. A lot of people have caught it.
Yeah, I've been doing good. How have you been doing, Bob? What's been new with you?
What is with these random clips? It likes to pull really old things when someone shouts me out, which, yeah, I've changed my model a lot over the years. That was recent. Oh no. I didn't hear it, but I'm sure it was funny. Oh, okay. She cast her gaze aside for just a moment. Enough time for Asa's heart to break. It wasn't the first time he had seen that expression. His wife was one among many people who had given him that look. I'm going to die, aren't I? It was the look of a spirit who had given up. Don't say stuff like that. You aren't gonna die. I'm not gonna let you die. You can't you can't leave me too. What would I do here all on my own? He didn't have any way of making good on his promise, but he had to say it. There are plenty of people all over who are sick just like you. Everyone on the island is looking for a cure. With how many people have it, I know they're gonna find one soon. Oh, that makes sense. A hint of the will to live had returned to Sen's face. Asa was relieved, but he hated himself a little for misleading her. It's not a lie. It's not a lie. There's gonna be a cure for Sen, for all the kids. There has to be. The very young, the very old, and anyone with a naturally weak constitution were catching it in droves. It began with a cough that wouldn't let up. Then they would wither and die. They would recover over time with rest and proper nutrition, but those affordances weren't available to the people of 𝕋𝕸𝕂𝕶 anymore. There's no other way. She could stow away to the mainlands. No, they'd kill her if they caught her. I can't let that happen. That would be too risky. But they didn't have much time. I can't wait to get better. I want to play with my friends, Daddy. Will you play with us too? Of course, sweetie. Daddy's gonna play with you. So for now, just rest up and focus on getting better. Okay. Sen shut her eyes and continued drawing pained breaths. How long does she have? A month or two? There's no way she can make it through the winter. The situation seemed hopeless. To believe anything else was just wishful thinking. Asa bit his lip hard enough to draw blood as he firmly held his daughter's hands. The next morning, Asa dragged himself out of bed to go work in the fields. He was just as tired as when he'd laid down, and no one in his row house seemed to have fared any better. This crap never gets any easier. Asa and peasants like him worked the land, but the daimyo owned it. They were merely tenants, and if their work wasn't up to snuff, they would be evicted. Hey, Asa. I've been talking to some guys from a few of the other villages. I already told you that shit's a bad idea. Talk is cheap. All you're gonna do going around like that is lose your head. He didn't turn to meet Gain's gaze. The two of them kept their eyes on their work as they continued talking. Ugh. So what? We just die on our knees? You and I both know we can't make it through winter with a harvest like this. And this year's catch ain't any better either. Ain't been better any better. Sorry. This year's catch ain't been any better. What are the chances of winning? Can't leave sent to get myself killed for nothing. The way things are going, it doesn't look like you're gonna have a damn choice. What was that? Asa's voice was suddenly cold. He scowled at the other man, eyes full of hatred. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but it's the truth. You know that, right? I'm not gonna give up. Asa said his piece and returned to his work. Glancing around, he spotted a samurai official walking by a little ways off. Overseers like him would make rounds and shout orders at any peasants they found slacking off. Look at that bastard. Asshole. They gave each other a look and shook their heads. There was nothing to gain by letting things go on as they were. Time was running out while Asa did nothing. Asa's breathing grew faster. It felt like he was giving up on his daughter, just letting her die. The vast majority of the elders died last winter. The food that would have been for them instead went to the children, and even then, at least a third of the kids died too. He couldn't stand to think about what life would be like if in the spring, if he was still alive. I can't. Gin, the other villagers, the entire island. They were all at their breaking point, and honestly, Asa felt the same. Why not snap and get it over with? His daughter was the only thing keeping him from doing something desperate. If he lost Sen, he would probably follow close behind. She was his everything. After all, he had failed to save his wife. Hey, you two. Asan King looked up at the official who barked at them. Somebody collapsed over there. Go check on him. Yes, sir. What if there's nothing we can do for him? I don't care. I don't want him just sitting there. Get him up or get rid of him. One after the other, the official looked to Asa, Gin, and the third peasant before walking away. He didn't look back at them even once. Asa. Oh yeah, it's over there. Asa pointed to a spot behind them just outside the field, where they'd found a wooden plank. They would have to carry the men on it. I can't believe I've gotten used to this shit. Asa swore as he helped King haul the body. He was almost certainly dead. The best thing to do would be to get out of the official site as quickly as possible. How many's this make? You been counting? Nope, there's always more. Sullenly, the men carried out their grim task. They listened to the sea as they hoisted the body along. The man's death merited no fanfare. I guess someone's gonna have to let his family know. Right, I'll do it. Asa volunteered. He was used to it. King gave him a sheepish look. Thanks. I know I always make you do it. I don't blame you for not wanting to be the one. I don't mind it, though. You don't? Nope. Grunting with effort, Asa didn't bother giving more than a one-word answer. Of course he minded it. It broke his heart to see the looks of the faces of the bereaved family members. But someone had to do it, and it might as well be him. Asa tried to look at it that way. We're almost there, huh? Sure looks like it. Let's take him just a little farther out. They were a short way from the dock, walking along the top of a rocky embankment. The ground was uneven and treacherous. But Asa and Ging had been horsing around there ever since they were children, so they had no trouble navigating the terrain. We had so many good times here, and now it's just a place to abandon corpses. Makes my skin crawl. I feel ill just thinking about it. There was disgust in Gein's voice. He quickened his pace, and Asa tried to keep up so as not to drop the body. The rocks were only exposed when the tide was low. As the tide went out, the water would carry away anything there. If you left a body there, it would be gone by the next day. We're treating the dead like garbage. Grimly, Asa surveyed the area around them. All right, here seems good. Okay, heave ho. Hup. The two of them tilted the plank down, and the dead man tumbled down the rocks. His limbs flailed in the air with each bump and roll, but Asa didn't seem to pay it any mind. I've seen it a million times before. No one had the time or strength to hold a funeral or dig a grave anymore. All they could do was send the bodies out to sea, with hopes that they would never return to this wretched island. Asa, we've got to do it. It's the only way. Otherwise, we'll all die when winter comes. But so what if they kill us? The missus and my parents already died, so we could eat. I found them in the shed. They passed away in each other's arms. We're human beings. That's no way to die. I don't want to go, not without a fight. I know what it's like. My wife was ill. She couldn't even get a proper meal. One day, she just couldn't stop coughing up blood. It was that disease that's been spreading across the whole damn island. You think I haven't seen death with my own two eyes? His daughter would join them soon. There was nothing he could do, he knew that. And yet, still, some crimes can never be forgiven. Then why don't? Asa turns to see what had caught Gin's eye. A little ways away, he saw a glimpse of what looked like white fabric and gold threads in the shadow of the embankment. What the hell is that? Gin froze up, but Asa moved forward to investigate. Hey, be careful. That's a person. Can you tell? The hair's off. But whatever. Hello, Titania. Thank you so much for joining Chloe's stream. I'm guesting tonight to read a story. At least parts of it. As much as we can get through before I get tired. Oh, now that you mention it. Asa sensed Skin behind him as he made his way for the spot below. Damn, what a strange-looking guy. Judging by the flat chest, it seems to be a man. But his skin was ghostly white, and he had yellow hair that shined when the light reflected off it. What do we do, Asa? This. He gave the man a kick in the chest, to which he responded with a start. Sounds. The man sat up and vomited forth a mix of bile and seawater before he immediately fell back to the ground. It looks like he's alive, at least. I guess we'll have to carry him. What? Shouldn't we go tell an official? He doesn't exactly seem like he belongs here. Nothing good will come of turning him in. Besides, when he wakes up, he can go to the official himself if he wants. For the sake of his own conscience, Asa wanted to keep the man safe, or at least he would have to turn himself in of his own accord. Look, I don't want any trouble. I'll help you carry him, but that's it. That's all I'm asking. Asa smiled in thanks, and the two of them started moving the man onto the plank. The man's breathing had steadied. There probably wasn't any more water in his lungs. I've never seen anyone like this guy. Maybe he'll know some kind of remedy. Then they could cure Sen, and that's not going to happen. I know that, but I can't help it. Asa tensed his face and lowered his jaw to hold back the tears as he helped lift the man up. Nothing wrong with the little blind faith. What's the worst that could happen? There was more than a hint of self-deprecation in the thought. With that, he and 𝕒𝕶 carried the man away. Asa had to cling to whatever shreds of hope he could find. Oh, we got to the opening video. I'll take a little break while this plays out. All right. I actually have to be right back. I shouldn't be too long. For my part, I am liking this lead up. It's a good lead up to a horror story. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyway, time passed, and soon even the 19th century was nearing its end. The Meiji Restoration had brought an end to the long reign of the Tokugawa government, and the capital's name was changed from Edo to Tokyo. Once a mere scattering of clans and islands, Japan became a modern nation state. Then the Meiji era also passed into history, and the Taisho emperor took his place on the throne. Each dizzying transformation of the country had its own impact on our little island. Still, although change was inevitable, it happened more slowly on Nieshima. Nearly 20 people were walking down the tree-lined mountain road, their feet disturbing the peace of the normally serene woods. They proceeded in an orderly manner, conducting themselves almost like soldiers, although they bore no striking uniforms or insignia. The looks on their faces were varied. Some grimaced sullenly, while others gave the impression that they were there only because someone told them they had to be. It would be difficult to surmise their purpose based on looks alone. The path they were going down appeared to have arisen naturally for being walked many times. There was no evidence that anyone had made a road intentionally. Clearly, the path was not meant for the general public. They were members of House Yasaka. At their center stood a young man whom they appeared to be guarding. His name was Kuro, and he was moving in perfect time with the others. He was not a beautiful man per se, but he was good-looking all the same. His face called to mind a tiger at rest. His physique was lithe and muscular, like a ferocious predator. His hands, however, were very large, which created an almost cartoonish effect. And although he was constantly alert, there was also something sleepy about his manner. Truly, he was a man of contradictions. He's just a sleepy boy. That was the first impression of everyone who met Yasaka Kuro. Mm-mm. Kuro kept shifting his posture. He couldn't get comfortable. The clothes were too fancy, far more luxurious than the simple outfits the others were wearing. He had never dressed up like this in his entire life. Why do I have to wear this? Kuro was frustrated. He wasn't about to cease his march, but his heart wasn't in it. Absent-mindedly, he was flexing his hands. My, you do appear to be nervous. The woman beside him teased him with a smirk. I don't know, maybe. I appreciate your honesty. Is there something on your mind? I don't think so. Am I supposed to be nervous about something? You're fine just as you are. Even if you tried to hide it, they would see through your mask. You aren't the most cunning predator after all. It's a cutie. It is cuties, plural. Hello's Sanathon 30 31. Thank you so much for joining Chloe's stream tonight while I am guesting. I'll take your word for it, Sensei. Indeed, you take everything in stride. Her eyebrows sank in exasperation. Yasaka Io found talking to Kuro frustrating at times. Her condescension would have seemed strange to an outside observer, judging by her stature. You wouldn't expect her to be a day older than 12. However, she had already seen 5 decades come and go. Her hair had gone gray a long time ago, but there were streaks of pink there, here and there, near the ends. She is owning that gray hair. And her purple eyes shone like amethysts. They were almost hypnotic. None of the Yasaka looked average, but she especially stood out. What about you? Are you going to let them see you like that? Why? Is that her? I'm visiting House Shiki to present their first daughter's groom-to-be. And you would have me deceive them? I think that would be awfully rude. Since when do you care about being rude? Io pursed her lips, hoping no one had heard her. Kuro smiled and continued walking, as did some of the others around them. Io was the family's ultimate authority, and they all respected her. She was their sensei. The Yasaka made their home on 𝕋𝕖𝕒 Islands, and although the so-called 7 noble houses that governed the islands did not include them in their power-sharing schemes, they were nonetheless a force to be reckoned with. Not all members of the family were related by blood, nor did they necessarily share a single common ancestor. They were, however, being raised together. House Yasaka was a single large organization directed by a headmistress. That headmistress was Io. It meant something when they called her sensei. She was like a mother to them. Sensei doesn't normally let outsiders see her like this. It must be serious to her. If Io didn't mask her appearance, she had a reason. Either she was dealing with someone very important, or she wanted to make a strong impression. Hey, you never told me. You need to stop worrying and accept your duty. I just don't understand why. You needn't strain yourself. I'm sure everything will fall into place just the way it should. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Why, of course I am. It's my precious little boy's big day. Why shouldn't I be proud? Hmm? Io tilted her head thoughtfully. It was an adorable gesture, but what was behind it remained opaque. She really won't tell me. Questions lingered in Kuro's mind, but all he could do was keep walking. He would get no answers from Io. 10 minutes or so later, they finally exited the woods. Nanawara village spread out before them. It was more or less the same as the last time Kuro had seen it. Automatically, Kuro took advantage of the view to orient himself, locating each of the 7 noble houses by sight. Ichikura of 1 treasury, Futara of 2 wilds, Kazui of 3 boars, Shiki of 4 seasons, Gosha of 5 monuments, Rikugo of 6 lands, and Saegusa of 7 herbs. I wonder what they'll do with me. Kuro wasn't nervous. He simply wondered. House Yasuka had no place in the village. Their home was on the other side of the island, separated from Nanawara by steep and difficult back roads. There was more than one reason for their being segregated from the other families. A prominent factor was the Yasuka themselves. We seem to be arriving right on time. Come, let's not be late now. The headmistress spoke, and her children called back in unison, acknowledging her commands. And the others were all Io's children. They were the products of her craft. There would always be demand for wet work, reconnaissance, sabotage. House Yasuka's trade was rearing individuals suited to such tasks and selling them as commodities. Of course, an artisan needs raw materials to work with. The Yasuka were not picky about where they obtained theirs. Many of them started out as children taken from the mainland. So given their vocation, House Yasuka was not well loved among the islanders. That's why what was going on didn't make any sense. House Shiki is the most prestigious noble house on the islands, and they want me to marry their daughter? This has to be some kind of trick. But trick or no, the matter was no joke to Kuro. I'm sorry if you can hear my family uh getting a little loud. Talk to chat. Oh no. Hello, Chloe's chat. It's so nice to be here with you. How are you all doing? I did ask a question. Um, it's hard to talk if no one talks back at me. But but yeah, I'm happy that you are all here and that I get to be here tonight. I really need to take this time to hydrate. Oh, welcome back, Chloe. I I tried talking to chat, but the but they chat wasn't seeming very talkative. Only um only Undertaken King responded with a cute emote. We're not used to having a voice here. That's fair. That's very fair, and then I understand. I don't want to expect too much from anyone. As they traveled down the main street, Kuro observed the many shops along the way. You could hardly call them bustling, however. In fact, there were surprisingly few people out and about for the middle of the day. Such a reception didn't surprise Kuro. The Yasaka were outsiders here. The people of Nanawara village didn't look kindly on their family's trade. Kuro and the others could feel the stares of passers-by, but they didn't pay them any minds. They had come to Nanawara knowing what it would be like. I see. Kuro commented to himself, and then he took a deep breath and straightened his back. Only moments before, he had the air of a cat lazing in the sun, but now he was stoic and intimidating. Taking notice of the katana that he wore on his waist, the looks that were focused on him just a moment ago disappeared, as if they were frightened away. Sensei forced him to take the katana with him. To Kuro, it was merely dead weight, but it was certainly effective as an insect repellent. Ah, so you do want to impress her. I'm glad you came to your senses before we got here. There, rather. No, that's not it. Oh. Io tilted her head inquisitively. It was a smug gesture. She suspected she already knew what was on Kuro's mind. We all knew what to expect. If they smell weakness, they'll think I'm useless. Kuro didn't have any way of knowing what Io was scheming, but he didn't need to. Whatever happened, he wasn't going to let himself bring shame to House Yasaka. What if the Shiki had only called them here to humiliate them, and everything about the engagement was just a pretext? What do I do then? Kuro considered the matter intensely, but he didn't have any particularly strong feelings about it. He had been carefully reared so that the drives of resentment and ego would hold no sway over him. It was one of his selling points. He did, however, foresee at least one potential issue. He looks to Io. Sensei, I need to know what to do if it comes down to it. If it comes down to what? You know what I mean. Oh, don't worry about that. I think it will be just fine. She gave him a pat on the back as though to comfort him. It shouldn't make her worry about me. I shouldn't make her worry about me. He regretted saying anything, but he soon forgot about that when he saw they were finally approaching Shiki's manor. The 7 noble houses of Nanawada all made their homes in manors like this one. The architecture gave off an imposing aura up close. Kuro's eyes were sharp, and with a decent view, he could spot all 7 manors at a distance. Still, they didn't have the same feel from far away. Each noble house had a trademark flower that grew in their gardens. I see the flowers are in full bloom. They must have timed planting them to our visit. They were a little hard to look at, but they are pretty. The Yasaka had stopped to admire the camellia blossoms. Someone had anticipated their arrival, and the gates swung open before them. When they passed through the entrance to the estate, they came into a vast garden with the central manor before them. A group of shiki were there to receive them. Kuro hadn't expected that. And they came out to meet us. The shiki considered House Yasaka beneath them. As far as the 7 noble houses of Nanawara were concerned, all that mattered about House Yasaka was their sordid business in human trafficking. They were a source of cheap labor and services at best. They really want me to marry their daughter? Kuro wasn't sure what Io expected, but he didn't think this visit would be anything special. It had seemed likely that House Shiki would have called them there to do some kind of dirty work. He thought they were simply going to demand a backroom deal. Just a business transaction, the buying and selling of chattel slaves. But if that were the case, they wouldn't be getting such a formal reception. What a pleasure to be graced with an opportunity to visit your fine abode. I am Yasaka Io, mistress of House Yasaka, at your service. Io bowed politely, and with the exception of Kuro, the other Yasaka behind her sank to their knees and prostrated themselves. Kuro, however, remained standing. He bowed politely as Io did, and that was all. He reasoned it could be rude to act excessively humble when they were receiving him like an honored guest. And it appeared he had reasoned correctly, as a large-framed old man stepped forward from the center of the group of Shiki. It was Shiki Dogen, head of the house.
Io Dono, welcome. Stand up straight, Kuro Dono.
Sir. Kuro lifted his head and did as he was told. Dogen began to look him over intently. He made no effort to hide the fact he was appraising Kuro as a prospective purchase. A normal person may have been intimidated, but not Kuro. He simply wasn't one to feel such emotions. Far from being nervous, it seemed almost as though Kuro was feeling out Dogen's intentions for him. Either that, or he was simply thinking nothing at all.
It's impossible to get a read on him.
Do you find him to your satisfaction, then?
Yes, I do. Not that any of this is what I would have hoped for.
Dogen gave a magnanimous nod and shifted his demeanor in an instant. He turns to Kuro again with a gentle look in his eyes.
Relax. I wouldn't mistreat my own granddaughter's fiancé, and I'm not going to do anything to harm House Yasaka. Loosen up a little.
Kuro nodded. Evidently, Dogen could read him a little bit. I appreciate your courtesy, but what do you mean by your granddaughter's fiancé?
Exactly what I said, and nothing else.
Quickly, Kuro glanced around at the other Shiki present. There was a girl among them who blushed and looked down when he met her gaze. Kuro wasn't the best at understanding emotions, but even he understood the implication. My, this is certainly an occasion to be treasured. Now, if that will be all, it's time for us to take our leave.
Well, I won't keep you, but you're welcome to stay a little longer.
A generous offer, but I fear there would be nasty rumors if anyone caught wind of your allowing us to linger here.
Rumors be damned. I won't allow that to interfere with getting to know my grandson-in-law and his family.
Oh, you must come to your senses, Dogen-sama. Her charming manners aside, Io gave off the unemotional air of a businesswoman, which befitted the headmistress of House Yasaka. Immediately and henceforth, Yasaka Kuro shall be a ward of House Shiki. If you find anything about him lacking, please make me aware of it at your first opportunity. Now I must be off. With that, Io turned and left without waiting for a response from Dogen. Her retinue followed. Unlike when they arrived, however, they left the scene without a sound.
She's a snake.
Yes, she is. Dogen, Dogen's eyes widened for a moment at Kuro's reply to his muttering. He cracked a smile.
I see you're no ordinary fellow. It's no wonder Yodono considers you her magnum opus.
I don't feel special. It sounds like she was overselling me.
She should know better than to take me for a sucker. I think you just lack self-awareness.
I'll work on that. But Kuro wasn't sure he was up to the task. He was never trained to evaluate his own abilities. Still, as the head of House Shiki, Dogen was his new master. If self-awareness was what was expected of him, Kuro's duty was to improve in that area.
You don't even know what it means to be my daughter's fiancé, do you?
I'll work on that too.
Huh. You do that.
Ah.
At the very least, your manners are impeccable. You've been raised well.
Oh, welcome Raiders. Raiders. Raider plus one. Welcome to Crow's stream. I am guesting tonight.
I thought I was gonna blow myself. No, well, blow myself out.
Dogen smiled wider with satisfaction before turning to the girl, who still had her eyes cast down.
Well, Kyoko, this is your fiancé. I trust I can leave the rest to you.
Yes, grandfather. Shiki Kyoko looked up to reply, snapping to attention.
It's okay to be nervous, but don't forget that you were the one who asked for this.
Of course, I'll make you proud. I'm sorry if my voice gets a bit too shrieky at moments.
Right, do as you wish.
Dogen spoke like he didn't care, but he was smiling. With that, he looked from Kyoko to Kuro, and then he turned and went inside. That left Kuro, Kyoko, and... Allow me to introduce myself. The older woman spoke up in a gentle voice. She appeared to be in her 60s or so. I'm Dogen's wife, Yukiko. I manage most of the household affairs, so I hope you'll let me know if there's anything you need. She said it as though she were passing a relay baton. The man beside her then took his turn.
The name's Yorimichi. I suppose I'm going to be your father-in-law.
Although smaller than Dogen, Yorimichi was a large, muscular man. His physique was intimidating, but his gaze was not.
So, can I call you Kuro-kun?
It took me a moment to realize who was speaking, because I forgot his name immediately. That's fine, Yukiko-san. You can also address me however you wish. Well, in that case, I'll call you Kuro-san.
Okay, Kuro-kun. I don't expect much of you. As long as you fulfill your purpose, you can do what you want. May I ask what that purpose will be? Make babies, as many as you can, and at least one of them had better be a boy.
Father, don't you think that's a little crass?
Kyoko, a woman is only good for one thing. You know that, don't you?
It was the bad old days. Mhm. Kyoko blushed and fell silent. It was a time when producing an heir was considered a woman's primary role by much of the world. Nanawada Island was no exception. Yes, sir. Kyoko looked back up and nodded in acknowledgement. Then, flushed with excitement, she turned her eyes to Kuro. I'm going to have your babies. I may have said that with a little too much energy. She seemed overwhelmed with emotion. Her eyes were alight and shimmering with like radiant pools. Seeing her like that failed to stir anything in Kuro, but he did find her enthusiasm unusual. Okay, maybe it wasn't too much energy. Thinking to himself, he felt he could admire her like he could at sunset, like he could a sunset.
She's very pretty.
He had to admit it. That's what I like to hear. I'm trusting you, Kuro-kun. Wait, I voiced the wrong guy. I voiced the old lady. I was supposed to voice the man. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We move on. That's what we do. I appreciate your confidence, sir. Yorimichi gave a satisfied nod and proceeded after Dogen. Kyoko was staring at Kuro. It could have been a tense situation, but Kuro didn't feel uncomfortable. Only Kyoko was nervous. Oh, Kyoko-chan, I know how excited you've been about this. I've seen you fighting to contain yourself whenever Dogen and Yorimichi are around. Good grandmother! Yukiko patted Kyoko's shoulder teasingly. It's not like you've been hiding it, dear. You heard her, Kuro-san. I know we're asking a lot, but I hope you'll give the young lady what she wants. Gonna save really fast. Oh, yeah. Hey, he hasn't even had a chance to find out how he feels about.
Yes, man.
What? Did you hear that? I think he likes you. But likes me? Quietly, Yukiko retreated into the manor while Kyoko was still reeling from her remark. No, it really was just the two of them. The silence lingered, even as Kyoko began to shuffle toward Kuro, tentatively. She seemed nervous, and her cheeks were still red. For his part, Kuro merely observed her approach. She was petite and attractive, with luscious black hair. Kuro estimated her to be a few years younger than him. She was beautiful. It was indisputable. When my father was here, what I said, it's not like, well, I mean, I do want... There was a flustered, breathy quality to her voice. A normal man probably would have grabbed her on the spot, but Kuro felt no such urge. Still, he understood the intention behind what she was saying. Allow me to start over. Is Kuro an 𝕂𝕒𝕋 𝕂𝔸𝕋? She bit her lip and swallowed before speaking again. May I give birth to your children, please? Yes. He didn't have any reason to say no. Are you sure you understand what I'm asking? Yes, I know what I know what I said. We can do that. Let's do that sex thing that I heard about once. Kyoko covered her face with her hands, but she couldn't hide the shivers that shot down her spine. Noticing that she seems to like his answer, Kuro concluded he had said the right thing. Kyoko suddenly went still and looked up at Kuro. Wait! Yes. Are you just telling me what I want to hear? It's hard to say. Is that supposed to be a yes or a no? I couldn't tell you. Kuro wasn't troubled in the slightest. He simply wasn't sure. It didn't particularly matter, because he was her property and would have a duty to obey her regardless. It was possible there was more to it than that for him, but he had no way of saying for certain. Maybe he was just imagining it. Io had taught him the importance of casting off such doubts. Would it be a problem if I was? Kyoko pouted. Her expression betrayed a mix of delight and frustration. So it doesn't even matter to you whether I have your babies or not? It's not something I have strong feelings about. I knew it! Wait, but you're not against it, are you? No, I wouldn't mind. I'm aware that women are expected to have children. You don't get it. I see. Kyoko moved towards Kuro and looked him in the eyes, unyielding. She appeared to have regained some of her composure, perhaps because she had seen that things would not go exactly according to her fantasy. She wants the stiffness. Okay, first of all, you could stand to be a bit friendlier. Very well, I'll... What did I just say? Okay, you got it. You got it, buddy. Finger guns. There you go. That's much sexier. Yeah. You don't care that I think you're sexy? I'm glad you... Don't say it if you don't mean it. Well, never mind, but I do appreciate it. Oh, you appreciate it, huh? Very interesting. Kyoko appeared to be happy. There was no doubting that. But at the same time, there was a sort of volatility to her behavior that Kuro found difficult to account for. She's hard to please, but not in the same way Sensei is. He had been taught that all women were hard to please. What made Kyoko different was the affection. Right. I can't say I get it, but it doesn't bother me. Then we have a chance. Kyoko gave him a satisfied smile and stepped back to give him more space. I'm looking forward to getting to know you, Kuro-san. We may be engaged, but nothing is final until we make it official. Let's take things slow. Sounds good, Kyoko-san. Please, no son. Kyoko then? Yes! Kyoko's eyes lit up, but Kuro didn't pay it any mind. He reflected on their conversation up to that point. For a moment, he came to a conclusion. Kyoko. Kuro-san. No, I was just trying to get your attention. Kuro-san. Not that I mind if you say my name. Not that I mind if you say my name like that. Kuro-san. You can stop now. You keep doing that. You do know I'm your property, right? You're my husband, Kuro-san, and my property. Wow, she's got it made. So you want me to act as your equal? I can't say I've learned how to fulfill such a role. Then I'll just have to teach you as we go along. I wouldn't want to inconvenience you. Oh, I'm going to enjoy it. Yeah. Yep, because that means I can make you just the way I want you. Hopefully nothing too unusual. Certainly not. Don't worry. I'll do my very best, so you won't have any doubts when it's time for us to consummate our union. Well, I'm here to be your fiancé, so that's how it's supposed to be, right? He sounded more uncertain than he had been up until that point, so Kyoko nodded affirmatively in response. That's right! I'm going to make you desperate to put a baby in me. By this point, several questions had occurred to Kuro. Why was Kyoko so fixated on him? Had they met somewhere before? Was there something he was missing? Perhaps she was mentally ill. If so, was there some way he could address that? He decided to set such questions aside. Even if he had the answers, he doubted they would have made he doubted they would have made any difference. It was apparent that she was too emotionally invested to be stopped. There's no stopping her. Besides, as long as she liked him, what problem was there with her having strong feelings about him? Come with me. I'll show you around the estate. There was a spring in her step. As Kyoko headed toward the manor, Kuro followed after her. I'm learning new things already. Thanks to me? Yeah. Kyoko's manners were refined, but she was cheerful and wore her heart on her sleeve. He nodded to her. My heart seems to be more open than I thought. He never would have expected himself to care for the feelings of a girl who was so infatuated with him. Then I want you to dive in their head first. Sorry. Then I want to dive in their head first. Head first sounds dangerous. Then will you catch me? For the first time since arriving at House Shiki. In fact, for the first time in longer than he could remember. Kuro felt awkward. He only averted his eyes for a moment, but it was undeniable. To the best of my ability, of course. Then I'm going to fill your heart up until it bursts. Does that mean you're going to break it? Of course not! And if I did, you can be sure I'd make it all better. You don't have to worry about a thing, just be yourself with me. I see, you're very generous. Shiki Kyoko's eyes glinted with determination and a hint of madness. She is so determined. Kyoko showed Kuro into the main entrance hall, the same one Dogen and Yorimichi had disappeared into. There, she stopped and turned to look at him. Is something the matter? It looked like something was troubling her. When Kuro spoke, the fidgeting of her hands grew even more restless. Then, as though to calm herself down, she took several deep breaths. 1, 2, 3. I told you I was going to show you around.
Yeah.
Kudo-san, I practiced introducing myself and giving you a tour of the estate many times in preparation for this day. Kyoko was blushing slightly. Kudo wasn't sure if it was from shame or giddiness. Either way, he nodded. She seems very Sorry. She seems very uncertain about what she's doing for someone who's rehearsed. She was starting to make more sense to him. I see. This hasn't gone as you thought it would. I hate to admit it, but yes. I just don't have much experience with this kind of thing. I suppose you wouldn't. You're a daughter of House Shiki. House Shiki was the most powerful of the 7 noble houses that ruled Nanawada village. They were the island's ultimate authority. Excuse me. As the only daughter of such a powerful family, Kyoko wouldn't have had many opportunities to play hostess. Yes, I'm sure you'll see me make a fool of myself more than a few times. I hope you can find it in you to not to abandon. Wait a minute. Yes? Kyoko fell silent the moment Kuro interjected. It's just, Kyoko, don't forget that you're the one who's supposed to teach me how to behave. So you don't have to worry about making a mistake or doing something rude, okay? Wow, she was so nervous that she forgot already? I'm sorry, you're right, I got so excited. I guess this is what you meant about jumping in head first being dangerous. Oh, I guess not. I'll try not to doubt myself so much and just teach you what I know. I appreciate that you want to learn from me. There was passion in the way Kyoko spoke. She faced Kuro with a fierce look in her eyes. I trust you'll teach me about yourself as well? It wouldn't be fair if you didn't. Alright, let's calm down. Oh no, I'm sorry. I can't believe myself. Kyoko clapped her hands to her cheeks, as though to hide how she was blushing. Kuro realized something when he saw her do that. It's okay not to be completely calm. We can have a balance. But then I'm going to do so many things wrong. There's too much tension in your voice and shoulders. It would be easier for me to talk if you relaxed. Sorry. The stunned look on Kyoko's face made Kuro a little nervous, if only for a moment. Back in House Yataka, Yo had been very casual with him as long as he practiced basic etiquette, even though she was the headmistress. Perhaps it was to make up for how harsh she had to be about his training, but whatever the reason, it made her easy to talk to. There was no guarantee that things would work the same here in House Shiki. If the way you were acting earlier was correct, then I'll make an effort to follow your example. Oh, don't worry about that. A smile spread across Kyoko's face. Kudo could breathe a little easier when he saw that. So does that mean you don't mind if I'm more open about how much I like you? Were you not being open about it already? I wasn't trying to be. That's why I got so self-conscious. But if that's what you prefer, then I'll yes! She stopped for a moment, then gulped. I'm so happy. Huh. Did I say something she liked? Get the feeling there's been a miscommunication. Good. I'm happy to hear that. Yes! That's all I want. Just be yourself with me. And if something is making you uncomfortable, tell me about it. I want to know if there's something I can do to help, and I'll do the same for you. Yoko nodded several times, looking like she was carefully considering the meaning of his words. Then she spoke up again, with a reverent look on her face. In that case, what part of the estate would you like to see first? I want to tailor everything we do to your desires, Kuro-san. Don't let me decide everything. What kind of things are you interested in doing or hearing about? Oh, and just so you know, I'm not asking only because of what you said. I'm asking because I want you to like me. Everything I'm doing is because it's what I want to do. Of course. I love you more than anybody in the world. But please don't think that means I want something from you. She totally wants something from him. I'm not trying to pressure you or anything. I'm just doing what I want to do. Please don't misunderstand. Just let me know if I'm being too much. Alright. Kuro-san. Are you just saying that? I'm sorry if that's how it seems. Kudo bowed his head apologetically and updated his mental evaluation of Kyoko. He had taken her to be a refined noble lady, but that didn't appear to be the case anymore. Oh, you don't have to. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way, but I guess I shouldn't be too careful either, right? Just do what's natural, if you can. Natural, right. Natural. Phew. Kyoko took several deep breaths to calm herself down. As he watched, Kudo remembered something Io once taught him. Her words rang out in his memory. Women's feelings can be volatile. They're impossible to understand. The best thing a man can do is take that excess of emotion as a sign of affection.
Okay. Love. Affection. Right. Kyoko.
Yes?
It's impossible for me to know whether or not your feelings are too much.
Then I'll try to help you understand.
That's it.
He pointed out Kyoko's enthusiasm and continued.
You're trying to help me understand how you feel, and I can tell that's an expression of love. I like seeing you like that. Kyoko?
She froze up for several seconds, and when she came back to her senses, she seemed sulky. You're being cruel, Kuro-san.
Am I?
Saying things like that will only make me fall harder for you. Besides, are you doing what's natural for you? It's hard to believe you really feel that way when you're acting completely emotionless. So sorry.
I hope that means everything is okay. At least Kyoko was in a good mood.
Judging by the way she was laughing, she was perhaps becoming a bit too relaxed, but it was better than when she was too excited.
Now, you wanted to know what I would like to be, what I would be interested in, didn't you?
Huh? Oh, yes. Please show me.
Please show me every room in the manor if possible. I'd like to see a map of the grounds too, but that can wait. I also want to see where you get food and water, and if there are any special facilities in case of an emergency. Please let me know about them.
As the most powerful noble family on the island, Hoshiki had many enemies. As a Yasaka, Kuro's duty was to do everything he could to ensure his owner's well-being, not to mention his own. Well then, why don't I give you a quick tour of the whole place? If you see anything you're curious to know more about, just say the word.
Perfect, let's go.
Kuro waited for Kyoko to take the lead, but she didn't move.
Uh-oh. Kyoko?
I want you to be closer to me. After taking a moment to glance around, Kuro stepped toward her tentatively from behind. The space he left between them was only about as big as his fist. Of course, Kuro's hands were bigger than most men's. There, that's better. Kuro heard her sigh, seemingly relieved. At this distance, he was close enough to smell a hint of her body odor. It was sweet and feminine. Apparently, she was a little sweaty. He took that as a sign she was nervous. Shall we then? Kyoko set off and Kuro followed close behind, keeping her within a constant range. This is the main hall, of course. Unfortunately, what you see is what you get. I know the manor must seem enormous, but there are no hidden passages or anything. Kyoko said that, but Kuro couldn't help but note the sheer length of the hallway, and peering through the spaces between the shoji screens that formed the walls, he got the impression that each room was quite large. There's a way out into the central courtyard at the end of the hall. Kuro sensed that Kyoko's pace was artificially slow. She seemed nervous. Perhaps there was something she didn't want him to know. Kuro tried to stay alert to his surroundings, but he couldn't detect anyone hiding nearby. I'm starting to yawn. Sorry about that. When the two of them came out into the courtyard, they found themselves on a porch from which they could admire a vast garden lined with vivid red flowers. Shiki's flower is the camellia, right? Each of the 7 noble houses had a trademark flower. Besides House Shiki's camellia, the only ones Kuro knew were the plum blossom of House Ichizo and the bellflower of House Futara. Yes, they're beautiful, aren't they? They are. You don't have to be nervous, Kuro-san. Do you know why I asked you to stand so close? It's because I want you to hold me. Right. After we get you settled in, I'd like to spend some time together out here. Certainly. Kyoko's ears were turning as red as the flowers. Anyway, moving along. Please don't fall behind. Kuro noticed the hesitation in the way Kyoko was walking and reflected on their conversation earlier. She said I was acting emotionless. Kyoko. Yes, what is it? Don't be upset. I understand that you want me to hold you. I've been picking up a lot of things about the way you're acting. Right, I know, but I'm happy to hear you say it. Now come on. Kyoko started walking with somewhat more confidence, and although he didn't entirely get it, Kuro felt a little more at ease too. By the way, what kind of things have you been picking up about me exactly? The way you smell, the way you breathe. After that remark, Kuro had to pick up his pace to keep up with Kyoko as she led him back into the manor. Let me show you the tatami rooms. We have several, and each one is furnished differently. I see. Kuro placed one of his sizable palms flat against the grass mat flooring. Then he lifted it up and slapped it down firmly. There was a dull thud, and the vibrations he felt told him a few things about what was below. No secret compartments. Nobody hiding either. Is something the matter, Kuro-san? Just checking the floor. Everything seems normal. Line of sight should be sufficient. His tone was businesslike. Kyoko just nodded. She then continued showing him the other tatami rooms.
They passed Dogen, Yorimichi, and Yukiko a few times along their way, but they never seemed to pay the two of them any mind. They had said their introductions and didn't have anything more to talk about. That seems to be the unspoken sentiment. They weren't necessarily avoiding Kuro. They weren't over the top about welcoming him, but they seemed to accept him for who he was. He could feel it. They're very understanding. I wouldn't want them to be more attentive. Then I'd have to figure out the right way to respond to their courtesy. And I don't dislike Kyoko either. I could get used to it here. Kuro continued piecing his logic together in his head as he and Kyoko wandered the manor. Eventually, she led him to a room that seems different from the others. Here's the main guest room. It's very similar to the annex, which we'll see later. There's an annex. The guest room was furnished differently from the tatami rooms. The windows let in more light, but there were fewer places to put things. Nothing else about the room caught Kuro's eye. Once he'd made a quick check of the floor, he saw no reason for them to linger. I assume I'll be living in the annex. After all, nothing in any of the rooms he'd seen shown up to this point suggested that they had been prepared for a new resident. That seems to imply the Shiki felt he didn't need anything more than the clothes on his back. Judging by the way they had treated him up to that point, he felt fairly certain that they wouldn't ask him to sleep in a shed or on the bare dirt, but the thought crossed his mind all the same. On the bright side, such quarters should make it easy to avoid prying eyes. That kind of thing was more important to Kuro than being respected as a son-in-law. He couldn't help but think like a Yasaka. Hello, Lakota. Thank you for joining us. I am doing all the voices. I enjoy this kind of thing. And people seem to enjoy it when I do it. Next, Kyoko showed him to a large kitchen area. It had a comfortable-looking raised section where there was a hearth for sitting and eating around, and below there was a dirt-floored part of the room with facilities for cooking. Nothing too fancy. Yes, I've heard other families like the Futara have separate dining rooms and huge kitchens where the servants labor out of sight. But here, my grandmother and I do all the cooking. I hope we can make you feel at home. We'll prepare everything right in here and eat together around the hearth. Most of our family time takes place in this room. When we entertain guests, we use the tatami rooms instead. I see. As one might expect by looking at the head of their household, Dogen, it sounded like the Shiki preferred a simple lifestyle rooted in work and family. Did I say something I shouldn't have? Kyoko didn't seem to think anything was unusual. Kuro realized the room must seem normal to her. I'm sorry if it's not nice enough for you. Unfortunately, we were originally a peasant family, and only good fortune has brought us to where we are today. We still find luxury difficult. My father likes to say that all it does is corrupt people. Of course, if there's anything you need, I'll do everything I can, but do please try to understand our circumstances. Suddenly, she was acting very mature. Apparently, she wasn't entirely at the mercy of her emotions. Perhaps it's unusual for other people to see her more passionate side. Kyoko was bowing her head apologetically, but Kuro leans down to look her straight in the eyes. You do the cooking yourself? Yes, I do. Then I'll look forward to trying it. Kyoko's eyes lit up for in an instant. Oh, Kuro-san, what's your favorite food? I'll eat anything. You've got to give me something to work with. There's nothing I'd like better than to make you happy, so please, for my sake. I don't have any preferences. Really? Yeah, I can taste whether something is good or bad, but it doesn't make a difference. I can eat dirt or leaves if need be. House Yasaka considered it a great virtue to be able to make do with whatever food was available, even in the most extreme circumstances. And Kuro was unusual even among them. He would be satisfied eating rocks if he had to. He recognized that it wasn't normal to feel that way, but he didn't see what good it would do to lie about it. Still, he had enough sense to leave out the part about the rocks. Dirt? Leaves? Kyoko raised her eyebrows and shuddered with disgust. Not that I think they taste good. I certainly hope not. But don't worry, Kuro-san. I get it. Get what? From now on, I'm going to feed you 3 square meals a day. You won't want to eat anyone else's cooking. Ah, I want to eat. Oh, that's him. I think? No, wait, who is that? Kyoko. Ah, I want to eat Kyoko's food. I see I see. And whenever you have to eat anything else, you'll wish you were eating my cooking. In fact, I'm going to work twice as hard to make sure of that. That sounds good. Doesn't it? You think falling in love with me sounds good. Hearing you say that makes me feel so... She's wet again. That isn't quite what I said, but oh well. Kyoko wasn't wrong to see a connection, however. Just as he didn't favor certain foods over others, Kuro had no inclination to like or dislike individuals. Pleasant or unpleasant, necessary or unnecessary. Those metrics made sense to him. Anything beyond that, however, had never seemed worth considering. Perhaps marrying into House Shiki was going to force him to reconsider what was frivolous and what was necessary. That's enough daydreaming. Let's keep going. Right! Excuse me, I lost my composure for a moment. Kyoko still continued smiling, even as she was leading Kudo out of the room. Stay close behind me, Kudo-san. I really like having you there. Right, I know. Don't worry. Okay. Phew. You hear me breathing again, don't you? Of course I do. Kyoko's ears turned red, and her lips trembled. After that, she walked as though unsteady on her feet. Oh no. That's it for the main house. Her facial expressions seemed somehow nervous. Kuro nodded and then began to scan the room carefully. It was a changing room separated from the bathing area. You're very observant, aren't you? Changing clothes, bathing. That was when you were at your most vulnerable. Kuro knew that when you were naked, you could only rely on your own strength. As he surveyed the room, Kuro went over the possibilities systematically in his head. If he were an assailant, where would he hide? How would he strike? How often do you typically take baths? Every day in the summer. In the winter, usually every other day. We can boil water whenever we want, though. We usually at least wipe ourselves down on the days we don't bathe. They're thorough with hygiene, as I would expect. It wasn't common to have a bath at a home in those days. And most houses had sections with dirt flooring. House Shiki would want to wash enough to present a clean image at all times. Authority commanded more respect when dressed up nicely. Kudo knew appearances were what mattered. A face like Kyoko's would make up for some very dirty business. Kudo hadn't realized he was staring until Kyoko started laughing at him. Is something funny? No, just the way you were looking at me. It was nice. I couldn't help but giggle. Nah, was I looking at you? Yes, you keep doing it, as though you're trying to figure something out. Sorry. You don't have to apologize. I've been staring at you much more anyway. Far more than you realize, Kuro-san. Oh, She really wasn't being driven by emotions alone. There was a calculating part of her, like a jeweler doing an appraisal. I don't understand this stuff at all. To Kudo, all that mattered about a person was whether he was supposed to kill them or not. Anything beyond that was simply irrelevant. He wasn't lacking in emotion, but he had no experience with relationships. yet never learns to express interest or seek reciprocation. While Kuro considered whether he should tell Kyoko that or not, she suddenly drew very close. You know, there's something about you. Ah. I have to be right back for a moment. There's a pill I must take, and that should probably come with a bathroom, a brief bathroom break. Yeah, I'll be right back. Welcome, Raiders, to Chloe's stream. I'm guesting tonight to do my silly voices. But I have to be right back.
Good. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Roll over.
I'm back. But yes, welcome in everyone. My name is Karin. I am guesting on Chloe's stream to do my voices tonight. This is the kind. Thank you, the Undertaken King. This is the kind of thing I often do on my own stream to a much smaller audience. So I'm so thankful for this privilege of being here. Welcome back, Chloe. I came back right before you did. Mm. Kudo thought about how to respond. She clearly didn't mean it as a criticism, so you enjoy that, don't you? Yes, it's so cute. It's so cute. And to think I'll get to teach you, shape you. Kyoko grunted and threw herself into Kuro's arms. She's so light. It's tiny and soft, and she and she is absolutely the top. Do you know my sin by heart already? Of course. Yes. The embarrassment was worth it. Oh. Kyoko was nuzzling her head against him like a cat. She was ruining her carefully styled hair, but Kudo got the impression he wouldn't be able to stop her. Ah, it seems we had a guest briefly. I do wonder if it would be a bad idea to get help from time to time, but I don't think it was that kind of guest. What am I supposed to do exactly? Kudo was too lost to do anything but look at Kyoko and let her do what she wanted. He could accept her excessive and baseless affection, but he found it difficult to know how to respond to it. It would require a very different approach than murder. Kyoko, let's... Uh-huh. Oh, yes. I'll prepare a bath. It's too early for that. Let's continue the tour. Oh. Yes, let's do that. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't let you see me like that. Or, well, I guess you're the reason I got like that. Doesn't matter. I wish you wouldn't say that. All right. Anyway, were you going to show me the bath next? It's so big. That's what she said. Such a bath would certainly make a good impression on guests. Kudo scanned the room briefly, but nothing looked particularly worth investigating. Then Kyoko came up behind him and pressed her fingers into his back, rubbing up and down. Don't worry, Kudo-san. I'll help you take a bath when it's time. You have such a broad back. Did you know that? But you must think I'm so pathetic after that. I can't believe I let myself get so carried away. I was all caught up in my own little fantasy. Mm.
But
I know it doesn't really bother you, Kuro-san. You're so kind and charming and handsome. You'll stay with me no matter how insecure I am, won't you?
Kuro didn't know what to say, so instead he patted Kyoko's back in an attempt to be comforting.
Thank you.
It's okay. I'm sure this won't be the last time it happens.
Do you want it to happen again?
If we're going to be spending all our time together, I have to assume that it will.
So you want to see me like this more? I feel so ashamed, but if that's what you want...
I'd prefer that over you trying to hide it.
Then I guess I don't have any choice. Ah, phew.
Kyoko stood up and wiped her tears on the sleeves of her kimono. She then looked back to Kuro and bowed her head.
I'm so sorry. I've been acting like such a child since the moment when you met me. You must think I'm hysterical, but I promise I'm not normally like this.
Like I told you earlier.
Like I told you earlier, I just got so carried away. I couldn't help myself.
Started doing their own voice. That happens from time to time. Kuro nodded and gave her an unobjectionable response while he tried to weigh whether he should find it comforting that Kyoko wasn't always so emotionally volatile. Is that so?
Yes. Oh, but Kuro-san. I can't believe it doesn't even bother you that I'm like this. After all, you said you'd accept me no matter what.
I don't think I said that, but denying it seems like a bad idea. Kuro was acting on instinct. He smiled ambiguously.
All right. I'm going to let you see the real me, even at my worst. I hope you'll find something to like about the experience.
Okay. Recognizing her enthusiasm, Kuro nodded vigorously. I think I will.
Good.
Clenching her fist with determination, Kyoko started leading Kuro out of the room.
Now, let's go see the annex. Don't fall behind.
Kuro could tell by the look in her eyes that she expected him to stay close. He obliged wordlessly. In the courtyard, a little ways removed from the entrance to the main house, there was a small annex. The architecture was simple, but not cheap. In fact, it was luxurious compared to House Yasaka's property, where he had lived. Good, not too close, and not too far.
Looking back across the estate toward the main house, he could see the entire building at once. Inside the annex, he saw a futon rolled up in the corner, with several pairs of men's kimono and obi folded neatly on top of it. I take it this is where I'll be sleeping. At this distance, he would be able to tell if someone was coming, and he could fight without dragging the family into it. It's nice here, thank you. He smiled at Kyoko. Do you like it then? Yeah. Why do you seem upset? I wanted us to share a room, but of course my grandfather said no. He must not want us to do anything until we've had the wedding. Oh, that was the wrong voice. Oops. We move on. Pretend I did the right voice. Yeah, but I don't get it. I would never do that stuff with anyone but you anyway. And we're going to be together forever after all. Well, I'll be nearby, so you can visit me whenever you want. Yeah, whenever, like at night or in the morning. You really want me to? Tapping at his window by night, so romantic. Mhm. I'll do my very best not to disappoint. Her response and the way she was blushing made Kuro think that he was imposing on her. Isn't it supposed to be the man who visits the woman at night? You mean you'll do it for me? My voice cracked a little there. Well, not right away, or I don't know. All right, I'll wait for you. Oh, wow. You're going to come to my room and I'll make sure to be ready for you. Hmm. Kuro had figured something out about Kyoko. There was no way to ask her to ring herself in. He needed to be concrete and specific. I'll let you know it in that. Sorry. I'll let you know in advance. But I want you to surprise me. Then I'll only let you know right before. Mm, all right. That's good. Kyoko couldn't stop grinning or sighing contentedly. Meanwhile, Kuro couldn't figure out what it was that she thought was good. I'm going to arrange my room now. What are you going to do, Kyoko? I'll stay here with you. Kyoko had an enormous smile on her face. Kuro merely nodded. He had expected as much. The next morning, when the sun had been up for a little while, Kuro was doing exercises outside the annex. He was barefoot and holding his hands in loose fists. One after the other, he would take a step with his right leg, then with his left, walking in the most natural way. But he was moving very slowly. One step took nearly 10 seconds. and his eyes were unfocused, not looking at anything in particular. He went about 20 meters like that. He took a deep breath, lowered his hips ever so slightly, and started backing up in the same manner. His pace was steady and unchanging. When he got back to where he started, he lowered his hips even more and began advancing again. Then he would repeat the whole process. His face betrayed no emotion, and inside he was calm. There was only the flexing of muscles, the awareness of the body, the detached experience of his senses. It was his job to end lives. No emotional investment was necessary to that end, so Kuro did not develop any. I never actually got to go on an assignment. He lowered his hips again and continued his routine as his mind wandered. As far as the residents of Nanawara Island were concerned, House Yasaka's business was unspeakably shameful. They were human traffickers, grooming children to do evil work and exporting them to the mainland. Of course, talents varied from person to person, but Kuro was raised to be good at assassination. Typically, when a Yasaka was almost ready for their first real assignment, Io would accompany them to the mainland to test them. There, as headmistress, she would give them a target and observe how they killed. She said it was so she could nip any problems in the bud. Uh, uh. Unfortunately, Kudo had never been granted such an opportunity. Such an opportunity. Still, he was very much capable of killing. He is going to do that walk back and forth very slowly until he is in full squat. He is so capable of killing. The children of House Yasaka underwent intense training, and accidents were not uncommon. Kuro had been the cause of more than a few such accidents in his time. I tried to hold back, but it took so little to kill them. Given his history, he wasn't sure he was capable of being gentle with a woman. He was a little nervous about it. Kyoko. He was determined not to bring harm to his own fiancée, especially when they had only just gotten engaged. But what was the nature of his feelings about her? Ooh. He didn't know. He knew she wasn't entirely stable, even if she only showed it when he was around. Would he be able to meet her needs? Standing there, racking his brains wouldn't bring him any closer to an answer. He suspected the only way to reach one would be to give it time, but part of him doubted that he would ever figure it out. I can accept that I simply don't know for now, but that doesn't mean I can just forget about it. He didn't want to expose Kyoko to such worries and doubts. Of course, she would enjoy it if he did. I don't want to rely on her too much. It wouldn't be right. I don't deserve that. So for whatever she does for me, I need to give her something in return. Kuro had a strong sense of fairness. Unfortunately, he couldn't think of anything he actually had to offer. He had gone over this line of thought 20 times since the night before. He was counting. Gotta stay hydrated. I surely thought I would have come up with something by now. I guess not. He had been in contemplation for so long. He had lowered his hips to a mere 30 centimeters above the ground. Slowly, steadily, he continued to move backwards. He wasn't sliding his feet either. Carefully lifted each leg, one after the other, while his hips remained firmly in place. And his steps didn't make a sound. He had gone back and forth along the same path countless times, yet he hadn't left so much as a footprint. Eventually, he reached his starting point once again. Then there was a sudden rush of air, and he was gone. He was already 20 meters away, at the other end of his path. His arms were outstretched and his hands open wide with palms forward. His wrists bent at right angles. His pose suggested a judo strike to the neck. Somewhere in the distance, a flock of birds took flight. Even farther away, a cloud stopped in its tracks for a moment as it cleaved in half before continuing to drift along. Kudo stood up straight and took a deep breath before looking toward the annex. Good morning, Kyoko. Kyoko stepped out of the shadows. She thought she was hiding in and bowed, seemingly feeling out Kudo's mood. Good morning, Kudo-san. When she lifted her head, she looked straight at him. She had a moist rag in her hands. Hey, thanks. Oh, that's for the sweat. Of course! Kudo took the rag and used it to wipe down his neck and chest. Yoko's gaze traced his exposed skin and followed his every movement. There was a hungry look in her eyes. One might even say thirsty. Shall I help you tell it off, Kuro-san? I can do it myself. But I would appreciate it. All right. Kyoko practically tore the rag out of Kuro's hands and began to wipe his body down tenderly. You have an amazing physique, Kuro-san. Oh, I didn't know. She reached her long, delicate fingers between the layers of his kimono and caressed his body with the rag, his abs and his chest, around his neck. Her fingers were chilly, as was the wet rag. There. Can I see your hands? Kuro did as she asked, and Kyoko massaged from his armpit to his bicep. I'm not used to being touched. It feels weird. But despite the thought, Kuro remained completely still. Woo. Ah. Mm. She seemed to be enjoying herself. Her cheeks were burning up. Meanwhile, Kuro was taking note of the fine features of her face and the tender-looking nape of her neck peeking out from the parting of her hair.
She's very pretty.
Kuro-san.
Kyoko placed her palm on his chest and looked up at him. It seemed as though she was tearing up, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of joy and anxiety.
You know, you don't seem all that sweaty.
Her fingers were on his chest, skin against skin. Kuro nodded, as he hadn't shed so much as a single drop.
Looks like you were training so hard. I thought you must have worked up a sweat.
Kyoko whined and stuck out her tongue in an expression of disappointment. Kuro sighed. He knew what she wanted. I wasn't doing anything that strenuous. I avoid the kind of exercise that would make me break a sweat. I'm sorry if I got your hopes up.
I wasn't, well, I was hoping, but.
Kyoko's voice started to crack as she stumbled over her words. She stepped away from Kuro and flailed the rag around in embarrassment. Kuro observed her while he adjusted his kimono. I'll do my best to oblige you in the future. Only sweaty workouts from now on. Kyoko clenched the barely used rag in her fists as she tried not to look at him, her eyes darting back and forth. Hmm. I'm starting to yawn even more than I was before. I like to do streams like this for about 4 hours. But it might be a little bit shorter if I get really tired. But we'll see. Maybe 20 minutes from now. Remember what I told you? You don't have to hide how you feel. She held the rag to her lips, shyly, and nodded.
Okay.
It looks like you two are getting along.
Huh?
Kyoko jumped. Behind her, Dogen Shiki was smiling.
I'm glad to see that you aren't having any lovers' quarrels, Kyoko.
Grandfather, of course not. When did you even get here?
About when you did. I thought I'd watch with you while your fiancé practices martial arts.
Wait, what? No, you've been here the whole time.
By the way, Kuro, you're very good, I'm impressed.
Good morning, Dogen-sama.
Yes, good morning. Don't be such a stranger. I won't have my grandson-in-law calling me Dogen-sama.
We still haven't had the wedding, sir.
Your manners are impeccable.
Kuro-san. Kuro-san?
She shuffled over to Kuro and tugged on his sleeve. Not in front of Dogen-sama. What is it?
Did you know he was here? Don't give me that look. How was I supposed to know? I can't believe right in front of him.
Kyoko,
Yes, sir?
go see if Yukiko needs any help. I'd like to talk to Kuro man to man for a moment. We'll join you shortly.
Yes, sir. I'll see you later, Kuro-san. Kyoko gave her grandfather a quick bow and trotted off to the main house obediently. The expression on Dogen's face softened after he watched her go.
Hehehe. She must like you a lot to be acting so shameless.
I'm flattered.
Are you really?
The look in Dogen's eyes matched his smile, but there was a glint of something piercing in his gaze. Kuro steeled his nerves and decided to set his set pretense aside. Give me a second. To be perfectly honest, I don't know, sir.
Oh,
I understand that your granddaughter has feelings for me. I wouldn't be able to tell you how that makes me feel, though.
are all her efforts of no use then?
I wouldn't say that. Kuro took a deep breath and went over everything that had happened since the day before, when he first met Kyoko. It hadn't been long, but they'd spent nearly all of that time together. I have no objections to her liking me if that's how she feels. Dogen looked hard at Kuro, as though praising him, then nodded.
Your heart is open, but but what's in there is a mystery, huh? No wonder Yodona said your education wasn't quite complete.
Sensei said that?
Yes, she said you were her masterpiece, but you still needed some finishing touches as a person. Now I see what she meant. It's nothing that a little life experience would fix. You'll grow up quickly once you've had a couple of kids.
I'll do my best. Kuro bowed and replied in a soft voice. Judging by how things have gone so far, I don't think it will take long once we've officially married.
Yes, I was surprised to see Kyoko lose her composure around you. A woman in love is a scary thing.
I think she may not be entirely stable emotionally.
She only gets that way around you. It isn't normal for her.
Kuro took a few seconds to consider what Dogen was saying. It didn't quite make sense, but it seemed artless to keep repeating variations on that response. Besides, he felt like he owed Kyoko some kind of appreciation, whether she was there at the time or not. He had never felt that way about someone, so he chose his words carefully. I'm a lucky man. Kyoko is luscious. Her skin is also soft and feminine.
Heh. You are, aren't you?
A hint of a smile cracked at Dogen's cheeks, and he patted Kuro's shoulder firmly.
You're truly blessed. I'm expecting great things of House Yasuka's seed. 5 boys at least.
It's more than he said last time. At dinner the night before, he had only asked for 1. Apparently, producing an heir was very important to Shiki. To the Shiki. I wonder if the other 6 noble houses are the same way. Also at dinner, he had directed Kuro and Kyoko to pay a visit to each other, to each of the other noble houses. Producing heirs shouldn't be difficult, but I get the feeling the other houses will not take kindly to us. He wasn't sure what he thought about children, so he was putting a pin in that for the moment.
All that aside, I see you're a talented young man. I could tell how precise those moves were, and you didn't make a sound the whole time.
Dogen narrowed his eyes as he examined the ground where Kuro had been practicing. He hadn't left a single footprint. Eventually, Dogen looked up at the sky.
My, you split a cloud, didn't you?
I didn't mean I didn't mean to.
So that's not some special technique of House Yasuka's?
I don't believe anyone taught me to do it. Besides, Yasuka often have physical idiosyncrasies, so a single house style wouldn't be of much use.
Is that so? Then tell me, how did your form get so perfect?
Kuro fell silent. It was instinct more than anything, and Kuro wasn't sure how to put it into words. Still, he was obliged to give Dogen some kind of answer. Well, I can only speak for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I walk without leaving tracks.
Ah,
I move without being heard, and normally without being seen.
mm.
When I run, I leave no distance. And when I strike, I leave no chance of survival.
What if you're fighting a man in armor?
If I strike, my target dies. I strike to kill.
I can't say I understand, but I think I get your point. You've got a gift there.
I just hope my answer was satisfactory. Kuro bowed. He was relieved because he genuinely didn't have any better way of explaining it. His movements and techniques were merely the result of what he felt to be the most natural ways to accomplish certain ends. He had never thought about how to communicate them to someone else, nor so much as had an opportunity to try. I've been having a lot of new experiences here. Dogen nodded obligingly. Kuro told himself that he would be sure to let him know if he figured out a better way of phrasing it.
Just so we're clear, I want you to know that you absolutely must not kill anyone when you and Kyoko are visiting the other houses.
Yes, sir. Sensei impressed upon me very strongly that I must never do my work on the island.
I suppose that was all you needed to know. as far as she was concerned. But since you're going to be my grandson-in-law, there's something I'd like to let you in on. Yasaka such as yourself are raised for one purpose alone, trading with the mainlands. The terms of this exchange require that they not interfere with us here on 𝕋𝕖𝕒𝕞 Island. Thereby, House Yasaka is able to find new raw materials from off the island and breed them as they like. Some of the children turn out feral and ugly, practically animals. That's why the 7 noble houses keep House Yasaka at a distance and see you as inferior.
Oof, I need to hydrate. Some voices take more out of me, as you can imagine. Dogen looked at Kuro expectantly, waiting for some kind of response. In light of how Dogen conducted himself with the Yasaka, Kuro was able to connect the dots. Excuse me. House Shiki is responsible for acting as an intermediary for business dealings with the mainland, right? You wouldn't be able to avoid developing strong ties with with House Yasaka.
Well, that's part of it. It's also just a matter of my taste. I tend to think the nasty things about the world are just as important as the beautiful ones.
Dogen laughed with a snort and smirked at Kuro.
And of course, we trade more than just children with the mainlands. My family manages all of it. There are some jealous souls who hold that against us. Not that I blame them.
House Shiki was the most powerful of the 7 noble houses, in large part thanks to their rich and varied traffic with the mainland. Kuro realized that was why Dogen had felt the need to warn him. House Shiki is adopting me to produce.
No need to mince words.
You're adopting me to get Kyoko pregnant. That much was obvious. But if I hurt anyone on the island, others may take it to mean that you've adopted me to kill for you, or rather. Kudo corrected himself, continuing. There are people who wants to frame you that way. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
You've got it. I appreciate you cutting the bullshit.
Oh, you do?
Yes, I can tell you aren't used to having conversations with family. You don't pretend with me. I prefer you this way.
Understood.
Good. Anyway, that's enough talk for now. I'm famished.
Dogen started walking toward the main house. As he followed, a realization dawned on Kudo. Dogen-sama?
Yes, Kudo.
I'm going to be visiting the other houses with Kyoko.
Are you nervous about her? I know I'm biased, but I'll have you know she's a very accomplished young woman. And she doesn't crack easily under pressure. I think it's unlikely that anything will happen that could break her composure.
But I'll be there with her, and not everyone we visit will be fond of House Yasaka. Some of them may have a grudge against House Shiki as well.
Ah, yes. You'll be there. I see what you're getting at.
Dogen stopped walking and cleared his throat.
Take care of her, but don't make a mess.
You don't think there will be any issues?
Just don't kill anyone. And I'm sure we'll be able to cover up any accidents. That's all, got it?
He gripped Kuro's shoulder.
I'm counting on you, Kuro-dono. I trust you won't disappoint me.
Yes, sir. Kuro didn't have any choice but to agree as the old man patted his shoulder in an attempt at reassurance. I do have to just about leave, I think. It's been an absolute pleasure doing this for you all. I had a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to doing it again sometime. Next week if nothing comes up. Take care, everyone. Yeah. Yeah, we'll keep in contact, Chloe. Good night, Chloe's audience. Oh, yeah, I'll stick around until we find someone to raid. Yeah. Let's go say hi to Trish. It's been a hot minute, huh? Thank you for watching. Good night, everyone. I will say hi in the chat of our raid target.